2 to Alain Prost, and then number 2 to Ayrton Senna, he assumed the lead driver role after the tragedy of the Brazilian's death. The first 4 races of the season had all been won by Benetton's Michael Schumacher. The Williams hadn't enjoyed the dominance of the past, and the team desperately needed something to give them hope. Damon Hill provided it in Spain. Although Hill beat Schumacher, the German was still seen as the brilliant Senna's heir apparent, and he seemed to confirm that by beating Hill in the next 2 races. Hill has always had to deal with those who say he'll never be as good as his father, Graham Hill, a 2-time world champion, and now he was having to prove his worth against Schumacher.
I guess a lot of people are saying Schumacher deserves the world title because he's been the driver of the year.
We'll just give it to him, shall we? You know, he deserves it, so...
No, but I mean, it's been said by other Formula One drivers, hasn't it? I mean, that must rankle a bit.
Well, I think that's the whole point of the sport. The whole point is, it's not who deserves it, it's the guy that gets it. It's not who, you know, why don't they take a vote and decide who they'd like to give it to at the start of the season and save everyone the trouble. You know, I mean, the point is, it's exciting because nobody knows what's going to happen. And whether you like it or not, whoever wins, that's the guy who's won. And you have to accept that's the result, whether you think you should have won or not.
Through disqualifications and suspensions on Schumacher, Hill was able to narrow the gap in the championship, but the tensions were showing, especially during qualifying at the British Grand Prix. The one race Damon Hill's father had never won. Although winning at Silverstone was the pinnacle of his career so far, beating Schumacher last week in Japan was probably more satisfying, especially after his rival's comment that he was a second-rate driver.
Damon, what about the comments that Schumacher has made this year? Has that annoyed you terribly, or is it something you just dismiss?
Well, I dismiss them, really, because I think that they were clearly created, that those comments were created to try and run me down and detract from, you know, and trying to diffuse me and sort of put me off and stuff. Well, I mean, they didn't do that at all, because I thought it was a load of tosh, really, and I think that the point remains, if someone calls you a second-rate driver, then you know, if I beat Michael in Suzuka, then what does that make him?
How would you describe the change in your relationship with Schumacher during the season? Has it changed much?
The point is, now we're rivals for the World Championship, and I mean, he was quite sort of, I wouldn't say friendly, but I mean, he was, you know, he wasn't frosty at all towards me in Japan, and I've got no problem with him. But I mean, I just wish he hadn't said those things, because I think he's made a pinnacle of himself, really, and you know, and it's not necessary. I mean, it should be sport after all, and you should accept the defeat, and you should accept it, and you should, when you're victorious, you should be magnanimous about the people you've beaten, because it's those people you've beaten that have made you, you know, the better person.
As he relaxed this week in Surfers Paradise with Barry Sheene, it was easy to forget that just 2 years ago, Hill came to Adelaide and walked pit lane looking for a drive. Now he's within sight of a world championship, something so few ever achieve. He might sometimes have to pinch himself to see if it's all true.